I think that puts some teeth to the citizens of Botetourt County to hold even certainly our appointed officials accountable, and even to some extent our elected officials accountable.
Thank you. Okay. Have we missed any guests?
Don?
Yes.
Back here.
Oh.
What time do we need to be out of this room, and could we take the time to have Chip speak to us for those who can stay, or?
It won't take it long.
Yeah, okay, Chip.
I wasn't planning on giving like the 2-hour speech.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you know, we want to hear from people. We're not trying to especially when we have guests come in as well to bring us up to date on some issues. So if you all would, well, Chip, come on up.
All right.
And give us a
Can I say
minutes.
one thing?
Yes.
I've been on the National Tea Party website, and there is an election coming up in Massachusetts. Scott Brown against Martha Coakley to replace Senator Kennedy, and they've been asking that if anybody could try to support that election, because he has stated that he will vote no on health care, and that could be the deciding vote. So if you got contacts in that area or relatives or whatever, any Republicans around here that have contacts or that are willing to give to that campaign, all you got to do is go under Scott Brown for Senate, and you can pull it up.
Okay.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate the comments and previews and all that. Again, since I'm the last thing standing between you and your living rooms or your bedrooms, I'll make this brief. Just want to talk a little bit about the Tea Party movement that's gotten a lot of press lately, and that's hear about it in the news, some of the news media at least, not all the news media. You know, you said something earlier about how we were able to get 2 million people because we're really well organized. Well, we're really not that well organized. I mean, if you look across the state, there's about 60 different Tea Party groups. Really, it is a true grassroots movement where people are just, whether they're, most of the people I think are either disaffected Republicans, libertarians, some Ron Paul folks. You know, we could probably argue all day about some of the specifics, but when it comes down to limited government, following the Constitution, the fact that we're a federal republic and the states have rights, some fiscal responsibility, I think most reasonable Americans can come together and agree on all that stuff. I mean, I don't know very many people in my personal life that don't agree with those principles. Even if we could disagree on the war in Iraq or a host of other issues, you can get people rallied around those points. And with minimal money, I mean, we run on a shoestring, mostly out of people's basements and things of that nature. We're able to turn out people to events where we'll do the kind of things that you hear about in the news. It really boils down to passion. And Bob spoke to this a little bit, that you got to have a fire in your belly for this stuff. And that's what I think's been missing from the GOP since '94. And that's one of the things as a Tea Party movement, you know, we're really nonpartisan because we don't really care what the letter behind the name is as long as you're pushing for those principles. And if somebody has the courage of their convictions to go out there and do that, you'll get support. You know, Reagan was popular. The Congress got there in '94, was very popular, and since they've kind of drifted away from that, popularity has dropped, the number of people, but it's right there in front of them, and I'm not sure. Bob, you're in Washington, a lot of consultants are probably telling you about moving to the left. I don't know how that's working with the Beltway, but it seems when congressmen get up there to Washington, they're infected with this disease and makes them sort of shift this way all the time. So, as one of the things we're going to be pushing for is really an accountability measure. But I think we feel like long term, our role really is to hold both parties accountable to doing that. So we're really going to be watching, like Bob McDonald's going to have it on his website, we'll be watching that. And if you think that we're just going to be bugging Webb and Warner because they don't keep their promises, we're going to be doing the same thing to the Republicans as well. So we really, and if you guys do what you're supposed to do, we wouldn't be in business. I mean, that's kind of what so Danny, I've never, you know, I mean, I've voted in every election and I give a little bit of money, but I mean, I stopped giving money to the Republican Party about 4 years ago because, you know, the talk was here, but the actions weren't syncing up with it. And, you know, it's kind of, I held my nose and I voted for McCain in 2008 because I really, you know, just, you know, what else was I going to do? But I've committed to myself that I'm never going to do that again. And I've had some people in the GOP give me a little dirty look when I say that. But in some ways, I think it's a good thing that Barack Obama got elected. I know it sounds crazy when I say that. But, you know, I work in the business world. You know, if you've ever been in business, a lot of talk about change management. We've got to change things and get people convinced to change. And I've always been a little leery of those kinds of change management philosophies. There's a ton of books about that. But I read one and I think it made a lot of sense. No one will change unless about 70% of the people finally realize if we don't change, this business is going under. And I think that's what's happening right now with Barack Obama. He's kind of crystallized in our head, well, what would a liberal president look like? Oh. So I think you finally got somebody to say, wow, this is bad. I think periodically we need to be reminded that liberal ideas like this are all not going to work. And I think we tend to, because of the media, you know, this whole culture sort of shifts that way. We've got to stand firm. And again, our role as a Tea Party is to make sure that people in this area stand firm for those principles. And you guys, if you do what you're supposed to do as a Republican Party and stand by the principles that you've always stated you have, you'll have our support. Pretty simple. So, any questions about the movement or?
I've watched the Tea Party movement closely and I've admired it. I haven't been involved in it. As somebody who's been in the Tea Party movement, you know, as you said, this is nonpartisan. What do you think the Republican Party could learn from the Tea Party movement?
It's really simple. It's when you stray away from the principles, the simple principles. When you have a president that puts forth the TARP, it was a terrible bill. I mean, all Barack Obama's taken what Bush did with TARP and just kind of extrapolated it about 10 times more. He's doing the same thing, just put the foot pedal to the metal and went harder for it. When you have a president that supports the amnesty bill back in 2007, I mean, when you have the Scozo Fava thing up in New York, we have a GOP that's not really standing by the principles, not supporting people who do, you're going to lose credibility. And, you know, I'm sure most of you have seen the Rasmussen polls that's basically stated if the Tea Party ran a candidate, the Tea Party candidate would beat a Democrat or a Republican, and Republicans finish just in third. Well, and I'll tell you, there's about 60 Tea Parties in the state of Virginia, and one of the hot debates we have is, should we support GOP members or should we form a third party? That is a real conversation that's happening. The majority of people, and I fall in this camp, you know, the issues are so grave, the emergency is so dire that there's no way that you could form a third party and get people, because we've got to get people into Washington in 2010. We slow things down until 2012. And Ken Cuccinelli said it best at one point, it's like this is all rear guard action until you can get the right people in Washington. So it's quite simple. If you do what you're supposed to do and you follow the principle you're supposed to follow, then the conservative base will come with you. And that's really all the Tea Party is. We're just the tip of the iceberg. We're just the tip of the iceberg. We're not doing anything special. If we just do those kind of things, you'll get that. That's really simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Better not to have our heads stuck in the sand and know what's going on out there. And that, you know, to encourage us to stand firm when it maybe not be that popular. And I've been familiar with it. But at this point, we've come to our adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all in favor stand up. And then we'll fix it.